Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Let's Eat. And I am so excited to introduce you to my guest today. I misspoke. I actually said on the podcast that this guest was my first guest of season three, and that is not true. I did have a guest back in, I want to say it was February or March, but since then, the podcast has been guest free. So, this has been a long time coming for those of you who have been listening and have been hearing me say, I'm going to get guests, I'm going to get guests. I know you're sick of hearing me. I'm going to get guests. This is for you and you're going to love this episode. And I can't wait to introduce you to Ariana, who is my guest today. So, Ariana Juarez is the founder of Alura Wellness and creator of the Metabolic Beauty Code framework. She too is an FDN-P, but she has been in this space for several years longer than I have. So, I was able to learn a ton from her. And I'm sure as I continue to follow her work, I will just continue to learn more and more. She has spent more than a decade researching melanocytes and searching for answers to her own struggles with melasma. She discovered that pigmentation is often influenced by a lot more than just sun exposure. And today she specializes in helping women uncover the metabolic, hormonal, immune, and gut related factors that may be driving their chronic skin conditions. So this one hits home for me. I have been dealing with melasma for a couple years now, and I haven't talked much about it. I haven't really talked about it on the podcast. I don't talk about it much on social media, but it's absolutely something that I struggle with. And I, up until meeting with Ariana, never thought about the underlying drivers that could explain why this is happening. I was very much in the frame of mind that this is a sun exposure issue and it is what it is, and nothing could be done about it, which honestly, I had to take a step back and kind of question all of the things that I believe in because you know how strongly I feel about symptoms. And it took me a second to think about, well, what makes this any different? This is a symptom. This is a skin condition alongside issues like acne and rosacea and eczema. And so now, moving into the next several months, I'm going to be working with Ariana on this specific issue. I also have a genetic vulnerability to premature aging of the skin. So I know that that plays a role in all of this. We're going to be using some labs I'm familiar with, labs that she uses just personally to address this specific concern. And it really just made me so hopeful and encouraged and honestly very excited, not only to learn from her. We FDNs need other FDNs, especially when they specialize in areas that are out of my scope. I probably wouldn't dive into this on my own just because I don't have the background and the knowledge and the years of exposure to the research to really help myself in this way. I'm sure I could do it, but there's someone out there who specializes in this, who focuses on this and has helped so many women overcome this, and I'm just really excited about it. So, this is the first time I'm talking about this new journey that I'm embarking on. So, thank you for being here on the podcast because you know the podcast is the spot. You know that this is the place to be. So, I will get started working with Ariana in the next couple weeks. And from there, I'll document my journey on the podcast about what we're working on, what labs were run, and kind of the whole process as I would talk about it in any other health journey of my own. And then also, obviously, the health journeys of my clients. So I'm really excited to be able to share that. But today we're diving into melasma, beliefs around melasma, root causes of melasma, and you'll just hear me throughout the whole episode. Just like this episode should be a video episode just simply because my face just says it all. Like, oh my God, I never even thought about that. Or no way. Like that connection is crazy. Like I was just blown away. And honestly, I'm ashamed to admit that I didn't look at this the way that I look at everything else, but it presented me with so much hope and encouragement to know, yes, there's something that can be done about this. The way we approach it in modern dermatology and healthcare isn't isn't the way, right? It's very symptom focused. And so I'm excited to dive deeper into my lab data, and to work with Ariana in this capacity, and then also keep a professional relationship with her as well, in the sense of being fellow FDNs and colleagues in the world of FDN. So I'm going to now formally welcome Ariana to the podcast. She challenges conventional beliefs about melasma and teaches that your skin is a metabolic report card, and that melasma may be one of the most fascinating case studies for understanding skin aging and longevity. So I am so appreciative that Ariana took the time out of her busy schedule to be here with me today on Let's Eat. So please welcome Ariana Juarez to the podcast, and let's eat. Welcome to Let's Eat. I'm your host, Emily, certified holistic health coach, functional nutrition expert, and self-proclaimed wellness enthusiast, here to meet you at the intersection of physical and mental health, the space within which we become well. This podcast is meant to explore all areas of mind and body wellness, designed to offer you the integrative knowledge, behavioral strategies, and mindset shifts necessary to uplevel your health and feel better today. We'll explore nutrition, sleep, movement, self-care and stress management, habits and routines, self-development, gut health, mental health, and more. I'm so happy that you're here. Welcome to the table. Let's eat. Hi, Ariana. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited. You're actually my very first guest of season 3. I have just dropped the ball on guests since I started season 3 back in January. So this is very exciting because I've been promising promising my audience for months now I would have a guest. And so we are starting off strong having you here, and I'm excited to chat with you and dive into your work.
Awesome. I'm so excited to be here, Emily. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited. So I would love for you to dive in before we get into the topic of today, the topic of conversation. I'd love for you to share with me about your journey. We are both FDNs, so we went through the same path more or less when it comes to our certification. And I'd love to hear about your personal story, what led you to where you are currently.
Yeah, absolutely. So before I became an FDN, I spent about 10 years trying to solve the melasma mystery.
Okay, yeah.
I developed melasma in 2008. And prior to that, I did have a pregnancy, but never had any pigmentation that was melasma like.
Okay.
And from 2008 to 2014, it really started to kind of progress rapidly when I had taken a trip out of the country, and it spread and got worse, and it got pretty bad in a short period of time. And then, I took the typical route everyone does. You see the dermatologist, you try the topicals, and nothing was working. And so I spent several years running functional labs to try to figure out what was causing melasma for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked with several practitioners, some of which gave up on me because they just could not put the pieces together from their experience.
Sure.
But eventually, we figured out some pieces that were really a primary cause, I guess.
Okay.
Melasma is so complicated because it may start as one thing, but then over time, as time goes on, it turns into another thing and another thing and
Mm-hmm.
another thing. And I think that's why it's so challenging to treat, is because we
Sure.
often think of things as just, oh, it's one isolated thing. It's estrogen, or, oh, it's hormonal, or, oh, it's the sun. And when in fact, there's so many moving parts
Sure.
to what triggers the melanocyte. So it took me quite a few years of running testing to get to the bottom of my personal case.
Mm-hmm.
And once I figured out that and
Okay.
understood that all of the moving parts together, then the needle started moving.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a long journey. Long journey. And I, unfortunately, if we were taking a few steps back, that kind of, no one could put the pieces together. No one really knew. People gave up on me. I feel like that's the experience, melasma aside, right? Like that's the experience of so many people that come to find us, whether or not they're dealing with skin issues or not, because that's the reality of or that's rather the deficit of a lot of what we see in modern healthcare is it's not so black and white all the time, and there's a lot more to a lot of these health puzzles than just, like you said, just the one cause. It's just this, it's just that. So I think that that definitely encompasses a lot of people's experiences, whether or not they're dealing with something like melasma or any a health concern in general. So I'd love for you to dive into what exactly melasma is. I know you just mentioned the difficulty that is treatment for it. So what is melasma, and then maybe what are some of the common treatments that we find in dermatology or in aesthetics that is used to address it, that is largely, I guess, topical, but what you've seen in your experience.
Yeah, so the traditional route of treating melasma is obviously in dermatology. The first thing they're going to tell you is you have to wear sunscreen at all times.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times it's hydroquinone, tretinoin.
Mm.
There's a dermatologist I know that heavily used corticosteroids
Oh,
in
wow.
her protocols. And sometimes they're using oral medications like tranexamic acid, which has some pretty serious side effects to it when you really look into what those are.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like pretty harsh on the body. I believe you have to cycle that one. You can't take it for very long periods because of its adverse effects that it has. Um,
Okay.
and then there's several other lasers. Some
Mhm.
people try lasers. Of course, most people don't have success with lasers. And a lot of times lasers will make your skin worse,
Mm.
because, when you're using inflammation on inflammation,
Yeah.
it's, not going to help. Some
Yeah.
cases, I think in very rare cases, lasers can work for you. I think
Sure.
my opinion with lasers is, timing is everything. If you
Yeah.
do the internal work, like if you run through the internal work for at least 3 to 6 months, depending on how bad your case is, then adding a laser can be helpful for sure. But
Sure.
I really think that it's like case dependent and
Yeah.
timing is really important to consider. So I'm not opposed to topicals and lasers, but I think, adding those in at the right time is super important. With my clients, I usually don't have them use any of that stuff for at least the 90 days or longer, depending on how long we're working together. But at the end of our time together, once we see progress in the skin, then we can move towards a healthy skincare routine and
Yeah.
lasers as an option.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, that I feel like, we typically treat melasma backwards. We're always
Yeah.
treating it with
Interesting.
topicals first,
Yeah.
and nobody has a good outcome. And I think topicals and that stuff should be last.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So I like that concept, and I think that that's a good way of looking at it. Like, they can be complementary, but what matters most is what's happening internally, and being able to go deeper, and then being able to move into more of like a maintenance with topicals, or just moving forward, using that as at the latter half of the process, as opposed to being the first order of business.
Yeah,
Um,
unless it's a nourishing topical,
okay.
something that's gonna replenish the barrier. But when we're talking specifically about pigment suppressors, tyrosinase inhibitors, those definitely should just be, because they can be really harsh. I mean,
Yeah.
tretinoin is really strong.
Yeah.
And, like a lot of people can't even use tretinoin because they'll break out in a rash.
Okay.
And yeah, so if you're sensitive to tretinoin, or like because it does strip away those skin cells,
Sure.
you want to really build resilience to your immune system before you're adding something like super stripping
Extreme
to
like that. Yeah.
your skin. Yeah, because your skin is an immune organ,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
second largest immune organ. We don't treat it that way,
Yeah.
but it is, in fact, one of your most active organs in your body. It interacts with all 11 systems in your body. And it's, when you eat something, your skin is the first thing to react. Like if you have an allergic reaction to something you eat, it's
Yeah.
immediately you see it in your skin.
Sure.
So it's a very metabolically active organ. And
Yeah.
you want to create metabolic resilience so that when you add harsh treatments or stronger treatments like lasers or
Yeah.
tretinoin that your body can
Handle it.
adapt and regenerate.
Yeah. Huh. Very interesting. Super, super interesting. So as far as understanding melasma and how you just went into kind of like the common treatments of it that you might find in our world today, that's a little bit more kind of standard approach. What do you also see as far as like what is attributed as being the cause of it? I know sun exposure I feel like is the big one, but what do you find aside from that or alongside that is what we have been led to believe is the reason that this develops?
Right. So traditionally, a dermatologist will tell you, "Oh, this is hormonal." Of course, I think we know that hormones play a role because of birth control use and HRT use, and during pregnancy, which are the most common reasons women develop melasma. And then oftentimes they'll say it's genetic,
Mm,
and that's a really kind of, I think that conversation deserves a lot more nuance than it gets.
sure.
And another reason people say is just, it's sun damage. You should stay out
Mm,
of the sun.
yeah.
Sun damage is like kind of one of the, I know we think of the sun as what's causing the pigmentation to come out, because when you go in the sun, you get tan, right?
Yeah.
That's the only
Yeah.
explanation they really have. There's no other explanation than you have this dark pigment. Oh, it must be the sun. But if it was the sun, then we would see more men with it, and
Mm,
we would see more
that's
children with it.
oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. That makes such sense. Totally. Okay.
We don't see any kids with it, and I
Yeah.
mean, I have male clients, that do have melasma for sure, and, they are in the sun,
Okay.
but they're not always in the sun. Some of them have very complicated situations, like they've been on SSRIs for 20 years.
Yeah.
They have really dysregulated stress. When you're on SSRIs for that long, your HPA axis is not functioning properly, and that's actually more common than people think.
Okay. Interesting. Very interesting.
And then
So
medication
go ahead.
use.
Yeah. Go ahead. You take medication use.
Yeah, and that's another reason why traditionally dermatologists, those are kind of the
Right.
pathways by which they understand melasma can develop.
Right. Okay. So kind of segueing off of these standard reasons, right? And you said before pregnancy and, birth control, HRT. Um, what are, aside from that, what are you seeing in women specifically that creates this symptom? That's I mean, I'm sure you agree with that, right? It's a symptom. What is it that is driving that you're seeing most commonly in your work, and what you've seen over the years?
Yeah. So, I mean, hormonal dysregulation across the board is, really common. I do see a lot of thyroid dysfunction. I
Okay.
see a lot of women under eating,
Okay.
under energy sufficient,
Mm,
working out a lot, but not really, having the proper energy supply for
yeah.
their activity level.
Okay.
So undernourishing is big, which when you're undernourishing, I think people don't take into consideration that you know, your stress response is going to be a lot
Mm,
higher when you're not
mhm,
nourishing yourself properly.
mhm.
So I do see a lot of stress.
Okay.
And even in younger women, I do see thyroid issues, which is kind of
Okay.
surprising. I think we
Yeah.
tend to associate that with like older, you're in your 30s or 40s and you're starting to see thyroid stuff. But I see young women as young as 22
Wow.
with, thyroid dysfunction and
Yeah.
a lot of gut stuff, so much gut stuff, so much
Yeah.
gut dysfunction, detoxification bottlenecks. I think those are things that, there's things across the board that
Sure.
are case by case, but
Yeah.
different, they're all different types of gut dysfunction, and
Yeah.
not every gut situation is going to be the same. And I think
Yeah.
people think, oh, if I just take some probiotics, it's going to fix the problem. But
Yeah.
you're looking at like, nobody's getting enough fiber.
Mm,
Nobody's,
mhm.
bile acids are insufficient,
Sure.
so that alone contributes to your ability to detoxify.
Totally.
And and then you have detoxification bottlenecks with just all the estrogen that we're engaging with in our environment.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
think the oxidative stress load just naturally
Mhm.
is very high for
Mhm.
modern day as opposed to like what it was maybe like 20 years ago. And I
Sure.
think that, even I see so many younger women coming to me with melasma. And I've been thinking about this, that, pregnancy so I'm 45. So, I grew up eating more at home, but generations after the 80s, we're eating out a lot more. We're eating fast food and processed
Sure.
foods a lot more. So
Sure.
I often wonder, because I know that, during pregnancy, you can pass your metabolic load to your children.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think people are being born with just less, immune resilience, more
Totally.
metabolic instability, things like that as we're going from the I don't know 2000s to now.
Yeah. Mhm.
So,
Sure. Go ahead.
I mean, that's why I think we're looking at just such a like nutrient deficient or insufficient society.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think, I appreciate you kind of walking through all of those possibilities because I think it does, like we know, right? Every person's very complex and it's maybe more of this, less of that. Or, like you said, the gut. I mean, the gut is like this concept of, oh, just put a probiotic in there and it'll be okay. We know how complex our microbiome is and, all of these factors. But I appreciate the opportunity for us to explore all of these other scenarios that I don't think people, including myself, would have connected with a concern like melasma. Like, I don't think that that would be something that would be, you think about acne, and I mean, even to this day, I think we're obviously immersed in this world. So we know that there's root causes, or if you want to call it that, right, to these concerns, digestive or hormonal or whatever the case might be. But for something like melasma, I know for me, that just felt, I truly didn't even make the connection between, yeah, it actually could be some or many of these things, until you've just kind of enlightened me with it. And now, I mean, well, I don't think I'm surprised because I know how the body works, and it's just really really fascinating. Now I want to go back to the oxidative stress piece while we're kind of in that category. I mentioned before we got on the call, I did the 3x4 genetic test a couple years ago, and I learned I'm a poor methylator. I have detox, detox struggles, and I have a hard time with oxidative stress. And so I feel like I have all of these these systems more or less against me in my skin journey, if you will. But I want to focus in on the oxidative stress. And if you could just talk a little bit about what that is, what that looks like in the skin, and kind of the connection there with the topic that we're discussing.
Absolutely. I love that you brought that up because I've seen a few podcast episodes with dermatologists recently where they're mentioning oxidative stress quite a few times. So I feel like oxidative stress is going to make its debut soon. Like it's going to be another one of those buzzwords. It's like mitochondria. Everyone's like
Yeah,
mitochondria. I feel like
yeah,
oxidative
yeah. I
stress
love that. I'm
is
rooting for it.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been like, oh, I should do a series on this
You
because
should.
it's one of those words that is just like sounds really catchy. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's oxidative stress,
Yeah.
oh, mitochondria. It's so like, oh,
Yeah.
that's the root of the problem. But,
Yeah.
oxidative stress can be caused by so many different things.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, the body creates oxidative stress on its own as an adaptive response. So it's not all oxidative stress is bad for you.
Yeah.
But what becomes a problem is when you have too much of it
Yeah.
for how much antioxidant reserve that you have in your body, which is actually a huge melasma issue. Like most women are just depleted of their antioxidants. And
Sure.
when you have a low antioxidant capacity, Well, melanin is your body's antioxidant defense system. It's
Hmm.
literally an antioxidant. So pigmentation starts releasing as a means to try to mitigate the oxidative stress burden, which for you, since you mentioned you have that gene or a gene, maybe a mutation in an oxidative stress gene, will that for you, I would get your antioxidants up as much as you can
Sure.
in every way possible because, you need those free radicals to be kind of scavenged.
Yeah.
And I would say it's probably one of the most common things, but I mean, you can get it from just insulin resistance,
Okay.
from, excess estrogen, a heavy
Mm.
toxic burden, oxidative stress. You get oxidative stress from having H. pylori. H.
Yeah.
pylori in your gut will
Yeah.
create oxidative stress.
Sure.
If you have not enough, too many commensal bacterias and not enough keystone healthy bacterias, then you're going to create oxidative stress. So, like,
Yeah.
almost anything can
Anything.
create oxidative stress in your
Yeah.
body. It's a very
Yeah.
natural physiological response.
Right. Yeah.
And even when you work out at the gym,
Mm.
your body creates oxidative stress. It's an
Sure.
adaptive response.
Sure.
So, I mean, it's good for you, but too much of it is not good for you. And in our modern day, or in these situations with melasma specifically, when you have so many different things that are
Yeah.
coming in, you have, like I said, gut issues, detoxification, bottlenecks, hormonal instability,
Yeah.
not enough progesterone, stuff like that, and then you have so many different things that can impact the melanocyte. Melanocytes are really sensitive, so, histamine, they're sensitive to histamine, they're sensitive to, estrogen being too high. Estrogen's very inflammatory if you don't have enough progesterone, and there's insulin resistance also creating too much inflammation creates histamine. There's so many these things, they all kind of work together
Yeah. Yeah.
in like a symphony.
Yeah.
That's how it's explained in FDN, right? It's like
Yeah.
a symphony.
Sure.
Yeah, so, you just have so many things creating oxidative stress at the same time that the
Yeah.
body burden is like, whoa, I don't know where to go. So when you have a body burden and you can't release or excrete, eliminate these things, it will push into your skin. It will try to push it into your skin. And then that's why your skin is releasing melanin in the way it does. And your face is it's like a convergent zone where like all these different hormonal receptors exist. And the rest of your body doesn't have that same convergent zone. So you're particularly sensitive to on your face.
Wow. My mind is blown. This is all so new to me. It's so fascinating. And, it's interesting too, is all of the language that you're using is not obviously unfamiliar to me at all, right? Like all of the things you're saying, it makes sense. But now that you're framing it through the lens of the skin and like the melanin conversation and, oxidative stress and just the body's response to it. And I mean, we know, this is the way I explain it to clients. It's like it's an endogenous, it can be an endogenous contribution to that oxidative stress, but there's also a lot of things in our external environment, right? That we're exposed to pollutants and, just different influences that create that picture. But being able to understand all of the systems that I know, or all of the rather, like, the phenomenons, if you will, like insulin resistance, estrogen dominance, things of that capacity, but understanding how that plays into this particular topic, it's not anything I've ever, it's uncharted territory, but it's just so fascinating because when you really think about it, or when I really think about it, why would that be any different from any other issue? You know what I mean? Like, oh, they all interrelate anyways, so a symptom of melasma would also fall right into place there. It's cool to now understand it through that lens. um what about stress and the nervous system and HPA axis dysfunction? I know you mentioned that before. I think this is a territory that I think to me is the hardest to navigate with clients, because it's not like I'm really telling them like, you know, you need to take this supplement or do this thing, or I guess it is kind of do this thing, but in the modern world, stress management or stress reduction is kind of like a, like, you're kidding, right? Kind of concept where it's like people have a really hard time with that because their norm is stress. Their norm is go, go, go. I don't have time for that. I need to do. I know I'm definitely vulnerable to that, especially as a business owner. So I'm just curious, kind of the connection between now stress. Obviously, we oxidative stress for sure, but then also just psychological stress in the nervous system and the relationship there.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like stress is one of the hardest things to address with clients.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because women specifically, I think we tend to normalize everything. We're taught to normalize everything from, period cramps to severe and extreme symptoms. And, I think that we are just like, oh, I'm not stressed. This is just normal for me.
Yeah.
This is just my baseline. I have this really sweet client, and she's the sweetest girl, but she's like, I'm not stressed. I'm not usually stressed. And I'm like, okay, well, your hormone panel says you
Yes,
are
it says that you are stressed.
like you are
Yeah.
really stressed, like
Yeah.
dramatically stressed
Yeah. Yeah.
in many ways, and she's like, okay, I'm like, but have you ever thought that maybe she's like, I feel like I'm just high strung. And or I'm like, well, maybe you are high strung, but maybe this is how you've adapted
Mm,
because your
mhm.
body is under so much stress that
Sure.
you've mentally learned how to adapt and cope
Sure.
with the stress to just get by. Maybe you're not high strung.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not.
Yeah.
Maybe you just, you've learned that survival mode is your baseline.
Yeah.
And I think as women, it's so common. And then if you're under eating,
Oh, yeah.
that's contributing to your stress response.
Yeah.
So stress is one of the biggest impacts on melasma,
Okay.
and your melanin is created in the same pathway as cortisol. In my blog, I have a blog post that explains my framework, and there's a diagram there that shows where and how pigmentation is created, the pathway,
Okay.
and it it definitely is the same pathway as the creation of cortisol, and it goes
Okay.
directly into your skin. We have 20% of our cortisol that's made in the skin as well. And so your skin is super responsive to cortisol. Even if you have eczema or psoriasis, if you're under stress, you'll get a flare or you'll
Yeah.
get an acne flare. Your melasma will spread and darken. So stress is definitely one of I feel like most women are dealing with some amount of stress.
Oh,
And
sure.
I feel like, physiological stress and emotional stress, your body doesn't always know the difference.
Sure.
We do because we're
Yeah.
like, oh, mental stress versus physiological stress, I think is something that we pay less attention to.
Totally.
Yeah, I think we pay more attention to the mental load a little bit. But
Yeah.
it's tricky because, how somebody manages their stress is going to be different case to case. Like what works
Yeah.
for you may not work. Like for me, I've been meditating for 10 years, like really, you know, 30 minutes a day every day for like
That's
7
amazing.
years.
Good for you.
Yeah, and so that's my practice. I mean, I have moments where I just stop doing it for long periods, but I'm still like
Because you're a human. Yeah.
yeah, well, I mean, the whole point of meditation is you meditate to reach the level of being able to sit with yourself, but then you take it off the pillow. So
Okay.
off
Yeah.
the pillow meditation is just like being able to be in a state of balance under any circumstances, right?
Sure.
So working and doing all the things you do.
Yeah.
So it's just a natural progression
Yeah.
of the practice. But so I don't sit as much as I did in the beginning.
Okay.
But not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody wants to learn meditation. Like
Yeah.
it's pretty hard. It's not like, it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
So getting people to kind of create a practice or intention for themselves to just give yourself space to just
Yeah.
be, or and whatever that means, for each person. I have like a whole list of things that I give my clients, and I ask them to explore each one during our time together to find what works for them.
Okay.
And that seems to be better. I'm like, look, if you don't like it, that's fine, but just try it.
Yeah.
Let's try these things and go through the process of figuring out what's going to work for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because it is really important. I mean, some people believe disease starts in the gut, other people's believe that disease starts with stress.
Mm,
And,
mhm.
I think they're both right.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think the more too that I've been an FDN now for a year, and so before that I have a master's in mental health counseling, so I did work as a therapist, and then I worked on my own with mental and physical health. So ongoingly I have encountered work that surrounds stress in many different forms over the past many years, but it all comes to that. And you go upstream even further, and I feel like I agree with the gut conversation, but do I agree with that less than I agree with the stress kind of conversation? Yes, definitely. I think the gut is just like kind of the, because stress is impacting the gut, right? So then what's further upstream? Stress. So yeah, I agree with that totally. And I think we as women, like you said, I have a lot of clients, and I myself too, where they'll tell me like, well, I didn't like feel stressed, but my aura ring told me I was like really, really stressed. And obviously we can't necessarily rely on devices to totally understand what's happening in our bodies. But I think that to me is an opportunity to educate them and say, listen, you probably are stressed. You just don't know how to identify it because you've just been living this way for however long, and your body is like your body's showing that through the data, but you can't recognize that because it's just your norm. It's just the way that you are, the way that you operate. And that can be really telling. And I think it's just a good wake up call for some women, even if it's not, I don't like to put all of my eggs into the basket of Apple Watches and rings and all that, because I think that can become a little too over consuming, or we can become over consumed by it. But at the same time, I think it helps to kind of show them like, yeah, no, actually you are probably, you probably are a little bit stressed. So maybe use that as an opportunity to take a break, or take a few deep breaths, or get outside, or do something to just kind of disrupt that a bit so that you can pay more attention to it.
Yeah, actually, what would be a great response to that is,
Okay.
when your aura ring tells you that you're stressed out, maybe step back
Yeah.
and try to feel what you're
Yes.
feeling in that
Yes.
moment. Like, because I think we tend to, just be so on the next thing that
Yeah.
it's like we don't even stop to recognize what physiological process is happening.
Yeah.
And so just being able to be like, okay, when you see that, let's stop for a minute and just sit back,
Feel
close
the
your
way.
eyes and feel your body. Feel if you feel your heart a little bit elevated, because obviously that response in that ring is going to be a heart elevation, like your heart rate is
Sure.
probably higher. So
Sure.
like try to feel into that,
Yeah.
breathe into that, maybe take a few deep breaths in that moment, and maybe see if you can bring that down yourself just
Yeah.
through thinking about it and breathing. That's what heart math is. Heart math is all about,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, following your heart rate and kind of knowing how to control your heart rate through breathing. And so that might be a really great tool for your clients when in that moment, to just be
Oh,
like, look, you have this ring.
yeah.
Just take a few minutes and see if you can bring that down yourself.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
then
I
you're
love that.
consciously thinking about it, and,
Sure.
you can do it in the moment. You don't have to then add and implement a new practice or new strategy to combat that
Yeah.
experience in that moment.
Yeah, I love that. No, I think that's great. And I think it helps the awareness piece a ton, right? When they're able to recognize, oh, this is what it, so my ring says this is what my body feels here. I'm able to make the connection. This might be
Yeah.
my normal without the ring telling me that I'm stressed. But now that the ring is recognizing this as stress, I'm able to see, wait a second, I shouldn't be operating in this way for multiple hours on end. I can start to kind of connect that to that ring or not. When I start to feel that way, I know what to do. So I totally agree with that. I think that's a great practice. And I mean, awareness is the key to self transformation. I believe that wholeheartedly. You need to be aware before you do anything at all. So I think that's a really great tool. So I appreciate that feedback. So as far as lab testing goes, I'd love for you to kind of, share on the different lab work that you utilize that you feel is most valuable for uncovering dysfunction that is driving melasma. So my audience is definitely familiar with some of the labs that are commonly used in FDN, but I would love for you to kind of dive into the labs and maybe certain markers that you're like, I really like to look at this one and understand this connection between that one. Obviously, nothing in isolation. We know it's all one big picture, but just from your experience, what do you typically use?
Yeah, so when clients come to me, I run 3 tests as kind of like my baseline.
Okay.
I get a really good picture of what's going on internally, and I feel like there's a lot to work with from the labs that I use. So I
Okay.
use Dutch test because that I wanna see what all the metabolites are doing from your hormones. That's, you know what it is, obviously, it's a urine test, not I was
Hmm.
opposed to a blood test. Blood tests are kinda more of like a snapshot in the moment. Um,
Hmm.
I like to see what your testosterone is doing, if you're
Hmm.
converting testosterone into androgens, what your estrogen and progesterone are doing. But testosterone, and haven't mentioned this yet, but I'll mention this now. But high testosterone and androgen conversion can definitely stimulate pigmentation in the skin.
Okay.
They're definitely pigment oriented hormones, just like
Mm,
estrogen is as well, and prolactin and thyroid hormones.
okay.
So I like to use the Dutch, and then I actually have a blood chemistry panel that I put together specifically for melasma clients.
Oh, fun. I love that. Okay.
It's a pigment biology panel, is what I call it.
Okay. Cool. That's so cool. What markers are on there? I'm so curious.
It's got like 21 markers.
Okay.
I don't know if I can remember all of them,
That's
but
okay. No, that's fine. I'd just be so
like
curious, like what you look at.
yeah, totally. I do a metabolic profile. I
Okay.
do prolactin. I do a thyroid panel. I do an iron panel. So that's, iron, ferritin, UBIC, and saturation. I want to see all of that. And then I'm going to
Okay.
look at copper. So excess copper is a pigment stimulator for
Huh.
sure. Yeah, copper overload.
Okay.
So I want to look at copper, ceruloplasmin, and zinc.
And
And
copper and estrogen dominance, there's like a
oh, yeah,
connection
yeah.
there, right? Okay. Okay.
Copper and estrogen have a feedback loop,
Yeah.
if you have
Okay.
too much estrogen, it makes you retain more copper, and then
Huh.
you're retaining more copper, which creates more estrogen. So, yeah, there's a lot of those little feedback loops, which is another reason why I think melasma is so tricky for so many people. It's not something some people can just, like, get it to go away from diet fairly easily. They just clean up and it goes away. But then when you have complicated feedback loops like that going
Yeah.
on, then makes it a little bit harder to treat.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I like to look at obviously your methylation, your, vitamin D status. These things are pretty critical for skin health. And I have a glutathione marker that I like
Okay.
to look at. I want to know what that looks like. I'm trying to think
Sure.
what else is on there. I feel like 21 markers on there.
That's amazing. I love that. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I have some inflammatory markers on there. I like for some clients, so you have melasma and then you have like vascular melasma, which is
Okay.
a little bit different. A lot of women who have vascular melasma, you get these little blood vessels in the pigmentation lesions. And
Okay.
when it's progressed to that far, it's like a red flag.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like a red flag, because that means you have some angiogenic stimulation going on with the creation of new blood vessels. And vascular endothelial growth factor and interleukin 6 are highly associated with disease states. So
Yeah.
things like cancer.
Okay.
When you start seeing, vascular changes in your melasma, that's like you need to treat that internally.
Internally. Yeah.
Yeah, because, those processes are Then you're looking at estrogen dominance with vascular
Mm,
endothelial growth factor or angiogenesis. These things are, like you're moving towards, possibly some kind of serious health concern at that
yeah, no
point.
doubt.
You have those
Yeah.
growth factors are like really dangerous
Okay.
inflammatory responses. So sometimes, depending on the client, I will put a VEGF marker on there if they have a vascular
Okay.
melasma. Yeah. So, and then I do like to look at some histamine markers sometimes, or I like to see what's going on in the digestive system. So I
Okay.
run a gut test and I look at, what microbial things are going on. I
Yeah.
want to know what histamine levels are and pathogens, good bacterias, bad bacterias, all that stuff. I want to just like revamp your gut.
Yes, love that. What gut lab do you use?
I just switched
Okay.
I was using the GI map. I literally just switched like 2 days ago.
Oh, no way. Oh my God. Okay. What made you make the
Yeah.
switch?
Well, I went through the microbiome clinical science course.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then
and
that's it. Okay.
yeah, I've just kind of been moving towards, well, what I'm seeing in my clients is, there's more dysbiosis than there is like the need for serious eradication protocols. So
Okay.
I've been kind of moving away from the eradication approach and moving
Yeah.
towards the restoration approach. So I just switched to Jonah.
Interesting.
Are you familiar with Jonah?
I'm not. No, I'd
Yeah,
never. Oh,
so
wait. Wait a second.
like new or
Mm,
it's a shotgun sequencing test.
yes. Okay. I was at a longevity
Mm,
summit panel in the city in New York City
yeah,
a couple weeks ago, and a representative was there, and he was talking about like how detailed this is. That name is very unique, so I'm almost positive that's what he was talking about, and he was it. They use AI, I guess, to like. Okay, all right, then we're thinking about the same thing. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So
Neat.
I just switched to Jonah.
Cool.
Yeah, the interface is really like new and interesting, but they basically take a look at all of the microbes in your digestive system, and they kind of connect it to those microbes. They connect to disease states.
Mm, mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you know this, but different diseases like autoimmune diseases, rheumatoid arthritis, Parkinson's disease, all of these disease states have microbe associations.
Sure.
And I kind of, whenever I have people come to me, like family members, I have some family members with some pretty serious autoimmune disease, genetic autoimmune diseases.
Okay.
And I started doing all this research on how these types of diseases are connected to your microbiome. So
Okay.
when I went to Jonah and I did like a demo, I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, this is like all of the stuff I already do, but then I don't
Yeah.
have to do it because they
Yeah.
have all of the research from almost every single microbiome literature study that's ever been published
Yeah.
as a part of their AI. So your is run through this AI and it correlates your microbiome with all of the studies that are put out. And the lady was like, "Yeah, there's like 200 studies published a day." So
That's what he was saying. They like
yeah,
it's so ongoing with the emerging research that each month it's thousands of studies that they're taking, and the way he was describing it was just like holy cow, what the world we live in. Like, I mean, it's amazing, you know.
really cool. I
Yeah.
didn't run the panel for myself
Okay.
yet, but I have run it for a client. My first client, my most recent client, I'm running that, and the
Okay.
report will probably won't be back for a couple weeks. But yeah, so I'm still using the GI map as I'm transitioning with
Yeah.
the clients I'm finishing that with, but I'm moving
Yeah.
towards Jonah. And then you do get access to all the research. They have all the papers there for you to access for
Okay.
your case.
Right.
So I just
Cool.
switched, and they do have the markers like beta glucuronidase, calprotectin,
Okay.
like they do have a smaller panel that you can add on for that they
Okay.
just added.
Okay.
So occult blood, all of that stuff, like from the GI map is all on there as well. So that's nice, which other uh, shotgun tests don't have that portion
Sure.
of it. So yeah, that's why I switched over to
Cool.
Gamma. Yeah, so
Yeah.
those are my three baseline tests. I'm more than happy to, I can share my blood panel with you.
Yeah, very cool. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I think that's amazing. So that is, and you feel that, and I'm sure because you're saying this, but between the blood markers and a stool test of whatever capacity, and then the Dutch test, all of that provides you with the information that you need to really kind of clarify the picture for the person.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of data
Yeah,
to work
sure.
with. That's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like that's a significant amount of data to work with. My
Okay.
protocols and my approach, a lot of the supplements I use are going to have some like skin pigment support in
Yeah.
them. You
Okay.
know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I have really extensive experience with supplements, so I'm picking and choosing things specifically that will benefit my clients through that pathway first. So I
Okay.
do have some, like, things that I use more regularly than, like, other random things that
Yeah.
clinical things I could use.
Okay.
So yeah, I do have some specific things. Um, we could talk about a few supplements if you wanted to.
Yeah, I'd love to hear just kind of what are some of the things that you would, I mean, suggest. Obviously, I'm sure there's a lot of nutrition and lifestyle, but as far as supplements go, I'd just be curious what your thought process is behind when choosing outside of just, um, focusing on blood sugar, like doing all the things that we know are going to be useful foundationally.
Yeah, so I won't go into any like protocol type supplements, but I will say that like there are a few supplements I think are really important for women who have melasma,
Okay.
who are under my care, like kind of a first line approach.
Yeah.
Um, Kind of like the sunscreen, like what supplements would I say would be important,
Yeah.
that would be similarly like a sunscreen, like what's
Sure.
important internally
Sure.
without having to go through a whole protocol. So I usually have most of my clients on a few different supplements that's outside of the protocols I give them.
Okay.
And that's astaxanthin.
Okay.
Astaxanthin is an antioxidant. It's probably one of the only antioxidants that doesn't oxidize in the body.
Okay.
So it also protects you from DNA damage from UV exposure. So
Okay.
really important for going in the sun, being in hot environments.
Mm,
It's also an amazing longevity supplement. Like if there
okay.
was one antioxidant you were going to take for the rest of your life, it's astaxanthin,
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. Or eat a lot of salmon.
Yeah, like, I eat a lot of salmon and I still take
And
astaxanthin.
take it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because it's one of those supplements that has so many studies on it with
Okay.
so
Cool.
many other things besides from just UV exposure.
Love
Yeah,
it. Okay.
it's you go into that rabbit hole
Cool.
after
I will. No, listen, I will. As soon as we
I
hang up, I'm like,
know.
okay, tell me everything I need to know. Yeah. Love that.
Yeah, so that one's kind of a must, and then
Hmm.
Polypodium leucotomus, which is, also known as it's a fern, but
Okay.
Heliocare is probably one of the main brands for that,
Okay.
and that is also really good for UV exposure and pigmentation and
Okay.
stress in the skin. It's, I definitely those 2 together for the summer, 100%. If you have melasma, just do it.
Okay.
Like,
Say
if
less.
you wanna prevent getting your skin getting worse over the summer,
Yeah.
that's definitely one that's gonna those 2 are gonna help
Okay.
just mitigate some of the heat from the summer and the UV exposure.
Okay. Yeah.
And I really like, EGCG, so from green
Okay.
tea
Yeah.
extract is really good for pigmentation.
Okay. Very
Those
cool.
are
I love
the
that.
those are the 3 supplements that I say if you're not on a protocol to balance your hormones, to
Yeah.
fix your internal system, those are those are the are great supplements that will support your skin and specifically pigmentation.
Okay.
Kinda
Very
also
cool.
green tea will also help bring down that inflammation load and
Yeah.
prevent you from getting vascular melasma because it does
Okay.
suppress that VEGF, the
Yeah.
angiogenic aspect of it. So
Okay.
I think preventing it, like it's probably not going to get rid of your melasma completely. It'll definitely help it a lot, especially with the inflammatory load, but it'll help it not progress to get worse.
Worse.
And when it starts to get really dark and then become vascular, it becomes harder to treat.
I'm sure.
You know,
Yeah, no doubt.
everybody knows that we have dermal melasma and epidermal melasma, and the difference is that when your skin barrier starts to break down, you get the leaking of pigmentation into the deeper layers of the skin. You
Okay.
know, and you kinda wanna prevent that as much as
Yes.
you can if you don't have that. But if you
Yeah.
already have that, then, obviously there's other strategies we need to implement for that.
Implement. Okay.
Yeah.
So interesting. So interesting. Well, I appreciate that information. That's just kind of like baseline for people that can, especially we're in the midst of a heat wave in New Jersey. It's going to be 100 degrees today, so perfect timing with all this heat. So the last thing I wanted to talk about, which obviously we talked about a little bit at the beginning, and I've shared a little bit about my story and my journey as I've navigated my skin concerns and the pigmentation and whatnot. That's something that I have recently come into in the past several years, and it's it is as much a you know physical journey as it is an emotional journey when it comes to navigating it, understanding it, feeling defeated by it, right? And not really getting clarity. This kind of circles back to what we said at the beginning and your journey. And I'd just be so interested to hear your take. I want to shed light on the emotional side of it, as I know is important to you as well. And especially because I'm sure with each client that comes to you, you have so much empathy because you were in that position, and you were in that position for a long time trying to figure out what in the world is happening, why is this happening to me. And I think kind of what I shared to you in the beginning, that's more or less where I'm at in my journey too, with some of these issues that I'm navigating. It's confusing. I just the emotional toll that it takes is really real. So I just would love for you to kind of talk a little bit about that. I can chime in just based on my experience, but I'd be curious to kind of hear from you your experience, and then how that motivates your ability to connect with women who come to you now.
Yeah, it's a serious topic, I think, that deserves more attention than it gets, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I had melasma, it was just I was so stressed out all the time. I was constantly checking my skin every 5 minutes in the daytime, like,
Yeah.
and especially when I was going through the testing and the process of healing, I was still just, like, analyzing my skin every single day. It controlled where I went, when I went, who I saw, what pictures I was in. I feel like I missed out on, like, a whole decade of my kid's
Oh
life because I was just so felt horrible, and I
my.
didn't like seeing myself in pictures.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even, you know, I think that we tend to, I think people think that, you know, oh, you look fine. I don't even notice it. But it's not even that I'm concerned about what you think I look like. I'm concerned with what I look like.
Like, yes,
I
yes.
don't recognize
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, you know, I know family members and friends and stuff want to be loving. They want you to know that the way that they see you isn't impacted by this pigmentation. But for many women, who have melasma, the amount of dismissal that it happens, you're dismissed by your dermatologist. Oh, it's nothing. Oh, this is just your new baseline. This is the new normal for you.
Mm.
What someone commented on my TikTok the other day. She said a dermatologist said to her, "Well, maybe you should go back to your younger self and tell her to stay out of the sun." I just was shocked at how rude that is to, it's one thing if I just wish dermatologists would acknowledge that they don't know. I don't know if you can heal this. I don't know what the causes are for you. I don't know if this is
Mm,
possible
yeah,
because I don't have those answers.
yeah,
Instead of telling women, you
that.
know, "No, you're not gonna heal this. It's never
Yeah,
going away. This is your new baseline," you know? Because I think what is said to women is so impactful emotionally,
totally.
and it's heartbreaking because, yeah, I have women who, even if they don't become my clients, every single consultation, I am thanked for my work. I am thanked for hearing them out. I am thanked for giving them hope.
Mm,
Because women, melasma is also one of those skin conditions that's ignored. I
yeah,
think it's treated as a nothing
yeah,
burger
yeah.
because it's not when I was in a consultation, this woman said, I think it's because it's not associated with physical pain. You know,
Mm, oh, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah,
that was a really good point. With eczema and psoriasis, you're under physical pain, right?
yeah,
And so that's why those conditions get more attention. That's why they're treated as more serious conditions.
sure.
Nobody really thinks about the mental and emotional pain that women go through with melasma. I feel like there's a component of, erosion of the self that happens
Mm,
because you become so, insecure or
yeah,
just uncomfortable with what you see in the mirror every day, and it really just breaks down your how you see yourself, and your
yeah,
self-worth becomes really tied to it.
no doubt. Absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't agree with that more. And what's so fascinating, I think, in our work is, like you said before, the gratitude that you receive from women who are just looking to be heard and to feel heard and feel seen and all of that. Like that goes such a long way because they're not being heard and seen by dermatologists, endocrinologists, primary doctors, gynecologists. Like they're getting comments like, well, you should probably go back and tell your younger self to stay out of the sun. Like there is zero use and or value in that statement. There is no value. There is nothing I can take from that and say, yeah, actually maybe I should do, maybe I should do that, Like there's nothing there. And so with this concern, and like you said, how that erosion, that word is such a great word of like your self-confidence, your worth, and like you said, avoiding certain things and living this life where you don't want to be out and about because of it. I mean, it is such a raw and real thing. And I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to talk about this. You coming from a place where that was your reality for so long, and now being able to then bring that clarity to women who are navigating their own journeys. I mean, it's such, and like we talked about at the beginning, it's such a specific population, but boy, does this population need your help. I mean, because you know how real and how intense that feeling is when, yes, acne's hard, rashes are hard, things of that, all of this. There's so many health concerns that are hard, right? But this is just so specific, and this is such an area that's lacking. So I think it's really incredible that you're coming from your own experience, being able to empathize, being able to guide women, being so immersed in your own knowledge and research, and being able to help them in such a profound way. I think it's, and obviously me coming from my personal experience, I know what it feels like to be in that same exact position. So, and I'm actively in that position, right? So I think it's just so important. So I appreciate you for just learning what you're doing and what you'll continue to do. Any final thoughts, encouragements, anything else you think would be so useful or just useful for the audience to hear before we wrap up for today around anyone who's navigating this, um, or whatever you think would be kind of a good final thoughts around this topic and this conversation as a whole?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I was going through my journey, and I meet a lot of women that are, just exhausted from trying to figure it out, trying to get the answers, doing the research. And, and then there's other women that are just discouraged and feel like there's no possibility or hope for them. I think one of the most important things you have to realize for yourself in a journey like this is that nobody's going to help you but yourself.
Yeah.
Knowing that you can reverse the condition and knowing that you want that for yourself is really important. I think that's what drove me to the ends of the earth
Yeah.
to figure it out, was because every time a dermatologist would say to me like, "Oh, this is just, management is all we have here." It was just the fastest way to lose my trust.
Yeah.
And I went to so many dermatologist and exhausted my ability, and then I moved on to internal treatment, and I just kept going even when people told me they didn't know, they didn't have the answers, they don't know. You just have to know for yourself that you can heal. And I
Yeah.
think that women are constantly told that they can't heal or that all their options are is management,
Yeah.
but you don't have to accept that as your story.
Sure. Sure. I love that. And I appreciate your words. And yeah, I mean, keep going is really what it sounds like, and not and not let the lack of knowledge or lack of guidance from one provider keep you from going to the next and continuing to move along. And it sounds like you persevered and you're here now and you've succeeded in your own journey, and now you get to be the provider that does know and can help, which I think is a pretty cool full circle, if you will. Well, Ariana, this has been so great. I appreciate you. I'm sure my audience appreciates you as well. I would love for you to share where the audience can find you. I'll also put your information in the show notes for anyone who might want to connect with you. But what is the best platform for them to connect with you, to follow along with your journey, and maybe reach out?
Yeah, so my website is I have all my research on my website from all of
Awesome.
the years of, doing research and running lab testing. My blog is a plethora of
Okay,
information. I mean,
cool.
everything I've ever learned about skin health and melanocytes and melasma specifically. And I do have some writing about skin longevity as well that I'm
Okay.
starting to post on there as well. So that's an amazing resource for women to learn. And then I'm on Instagram, Alura.wellness, and also sometimes I'm on TikTok as well. I'm still like, I feel like I have all this social media trauma still from like being on camera, being in a picture
Oh
and on video,
yeah.
having melasma that like
Yeah.
I'm so inconsistent with posting. But I
That's
try.
okay.
I try.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Well,
I'm
I will put all that information in the show notes so that everyone can follow along. I know for me, I will absolutely be all over your blog, so that will be my first order of business after our chat today. Well, thank you again for being here. It means the world. Like I said, I think the audience is going to really eat this up, and it has been obviously very enlightening for me as well. So I appreciate you, and thank you to everyone who tuned in for today's episode. I appreciate you as well, and until next time, be well.